All right, team. Today, while you watch your video, I want you to have paper and a pencil, or your whiteboard, I suppose, but it would probably be better with paper and a pencil today because we're going to go through each question and kind of mark them up or think about what we know, and then you guys are going to solve once we do that for every question. All right, here we go. I see an addition sign, so I know I'm going to be adding or counting up to get a bigger number as my answer. I know I can set this up two ways. I can stack and line up place values. I like to write my place values so I don't get mixed up. And I always remember that I always start in the ones and then move that way. I can also set it up showing my expanded form because that helps me know what all of my numbers represent. Don't forget to line up your place values. 500 is not a thousands number, so it needs to go in the hundreds place, not the thousands place. 30 is a tens number, and then we have the 9 in the ones place. I also like to write my place values up here. And then we're ready to solve. Don't forget to start in the ones. And remember that when you have more than this place value, you have to regroup. So if you have more tens than you need, So if you have tens in your ones answer, you need to move it to the tens. If you have hundreds in your tens answer, you need to move it to the hundreds. And if you have thousands, you need to move it to the thousands. But remember, if you don't have hundreds when you add your tens, there's nothing to regroup. You just write your answer and move on. We know how to do that, so just start in the ones and check your work. All right, moving on. Now I see a minus sign, so I know I'm going to be subtracting or counting backwards to get a smaller number. I can do this just like addition, but I need to remember that I'm subtracting, so I'm going to be taking away. I like to write my place values, so I remember to start in the ones, and just remember we're minusing. Noticing that I lined up each place value and nothing is below my thousands because there's no thousands. You can also show the expanded form. And remember, we still start in the ones no matter what, but when we're subtracting, we regroup when we don't have enough. So we're not going to be regrouping by moving up to the next place value. We would actually take away from a place value and give it to the lower place value so that then we can take away the number we need to. I'm noticing in the ones I don't need to regroup because that 2 take away 1 gives me 1. But then when I get to the tens, I'm noticing I'm doing 0 minus 20, which means I don't have enough to take away 20. So I have to regroup from the hundreds by taking 1, leaving me 3 hundreds, and giving that 100 to the tens place. So now it's 100 minus 20. You can also do this on the stack side. All right, do your very best. Let's see what you got. Don't forget to check your work. You can do this. All right, round 137 to the nearest 10. Okay, well, I know what round means, and I know what nearest 10 means, and they want me to do 137. I know that when I'm doing rounding, I have 2 choices. And when it tells me 10, I know that this has to be a tens number and this has to be a tens number. I know my tens number is here and it's 30, but it's more than that because it's really 130. So I know my 137 is on 130 as the tens number. And if I were to go up to the next tens number, 130, 140, it would be 140. So 137 is between 130 and 140 when we're looking at tens numbers. Those are the nearest tens. But the question is, which one is closer? Is 140 closer to 137 or is 130 closer to 137? And we like to use a number line. We know our midpoint will be the 5 between, and then we can fill in the rest with those 4 lines. 131, 132. Jerable taught me this. 133, 130 to go sideways. 134, 136, 137, 138, 139, 140. Then I know where my wall is. It's at that midpoint, 135, and I can place 137 on the line. Once I place it, I know if it's over here, I round down, but if it's from the wall or forward, I round up. Is it 130 or is it 140? You've got this. All right, now it wants me to round the same number, but they want me to round to the nearest 100, which means I'm looking at 137, but I'm looking at the hundreds place. And I know it's going to be 100 because that's my hundreds number, or 200 because that's the next hundreds number, 100, 200, 300, 400. So I'm going to place that on a number line. Remember, when we do hundreds, we count by tens on the number line. So my midpoint and that wall will be 50. And because I'm at 100, it'll be 150. 100, 150, 200. When we place the lines, we do 4 on each side. And then we go ahead and count by 10. 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, and then 200. And I can think about one where 137 goes. Remember, I'm really looking at the tens place for my 130, but then I'm thinking, well, where would 137 be? Remember, once you place your number, if it's on this side of the wall, it goes down. But if it's at the wall or over here, you're going up. Okay. Number 5 is a word problem, so we're going to read carefully and label. There are 42 apples. 7 apples fit in each bucket. How many buckets will we need to hold all 42 apples? Okay, they want to know about the buckets, and they told me about 42 apples. They also said all 42 apples, which to me means that 42 apples is my total. I also see 7 apples fit in each, so 7 apples must be my each. I have a total in an each, and it wants to know my buckets or my groups. So my total is 42, my each is 7, and my groups is the question. You guys know how to solve this. If you're given a total, what do you have to do to find those missing groups? What are we going to have to do? What are you doing with your each and your total to find your groups? You've got this. All right. There are 10 cars. Each car holds 6 passengers. How many passengers are there in all? All right, there are 10 cars. Each car holds 6 passengers. So 6 is my each. And then how many passengers there in all, which sounds like the in all is the question. And the 10 cars must be my groups. There are 10 groups or 10 cars with 6 people in each of those groups. How do you find the total when you're given groups in each? How will you get a total? All right, the next 2 are fractions. I don't want to give you too much information here. You're going to have to write the fraction name for this model and the fraction name for this model. What I'm going to remind you is that when we look at a numerator or the top number of a fraction, we're talking about the, say it, yeah, shaded parts or unshaded parts, guys. Sometimes it's what they name. So sometimes they're like, oh, I want you to name the strawberry parts. So instead of shaded parts, your numerator would be the strawberry parts. However, because these models are shaded, I know they want me to name the shaded fraction. If it said write the unshaded fraction, I would look over here and I'd have to do the unshaded parts. But the numerator wants to know what parts we're focused on or what parts we're looking at. And both of these models are showing me that with shaded parts. Now, the denominator or the bottom number of your fraction is always, say it, the total number of parts in one whole, right? Remember, one whole is all we're looking at for the denominator. So a denominator is the total number of parts in one And I want you to notice there are 3 holes here, and the denominator only counts the parts in 1 hole. All right, do your best.